As the world descends into chaos, we see the unemployment and poverty rates rising. And today we will look at the US poverty hitting epidemic levels. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. This right here is out of census.gov, showing you that more millennials are living in poverty today. They have lower rates of employment compared with their counterparts in 1980. They say that everything is just fine. They say that everything is doing well, particularly since the financial crisis, because, of course, look at the stock market. But we see that is absolutely not the case. 1 in 5 young adults lives in poverty. That's an incredible 13.5 million people, up from 1 in 7 in 1980. They cannot fake these numbers anymore. They can continuously hide them from the mainstream media. And what's interesting about this is that no matter how bad these statistics get, they will not affect the stock market. They only look at the contrived unemployment rate and the jobs numbers, which are completely fraudulent month after month. They use strategies in order to keep these numbers looking pretty, and it is working well for them because the stock market continues to rise, even though poverty levels are so high right now. We'll get into that right away. You can read this for yourself, more statistics there. This is right here showing you the SNAP program, also known as the food stamp program, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. Once again, over 46 million people on food stamps. And this goes to show you how bad things really are. In fact, I believe it is either 36 or 37 months consistently over 46 million people on the food stamp program. This is a number that has declined a bit. However, that may be because of the cutbacks in the SNAP program in recent times, not because there's actually less people needing food stamps. And of course, as I've discussed this before, they have had the issue where people are actually not able to make ends meet, yet they don't qualify for the typical welfare type programs. So we can expect that there are much more people than the 46 million that actually require food stamps in order to survive. Pretty amazing stuff here. Let's look at this out of the Washington Post. They're saying that the United States ranks near the bottom of the pack of wealthy nations on a measure of child poverty. Something to really think about, because generally the US would be perceived as a prosperous nation. However, that is anything but the case according to this new report. And they said that nearly 1/3 of US children live in households with an income below 60% of the national median income in 2008, which is about $31,000. So this is going to show you 1/3 of the US children are in a tight spot right now. And that is something that you just can't grow out of in a couple years. There are fundamental changes that need to occur, but it seems like everything is heading back into the direction of the financial crisis. And I'll get into that more later on in this show here. Look at the wage statistics for 2013 out of the Social Security Administration's website, directly from them. 50% of wage earners had net compensation less than or equal to the median wage, which is estimated to be $28,000 for 2013. Half of the wage earners were less than or equal to the median wage. What does that show you right here? How bad the situation is when the majority of people are hurting. Can you believe it that 46 million are on food stamps and all of these other poverty statistics, more to come here? They're going to show you how bad it really is. This is something to look at and to realize. And then you have I've discussed it here before, but essentially how the Social Security program is completely empty, how they continuously take money out of there to use it to pay off their schemes and scams all around the world, piling up the debt, but they say that it's okay because it's what they call intragovernmental debt. And that is nothing but stealing from the future, but it is going to be a big problem because in these instances, we have poverty in the young generation in particular, and that's something that you just don't get out of right away. This is pretty interesting, actually, out of the Telegraph. They said that Bank of America said 56% of global GDP is currently supported by zero interest rates. Can you believe that? More than half of the global GDP supported by zero interest rates. Now, what happens if they bring those interest rates up to, let's just say, a very conservative number of, let's say, 3%? That would be historically very low. You would have massive crashes occurring globally. So when you think about that for just a second, if they bring the interest rates up to a rate that historically is actually considered low, you're going to have a crash that occurs that will be much, much worse than the financial crisis. But of course, they can't do that because they're going to crash the economy. They know that unless they're ready to crash the economy, because using that Hegelian dialectic, they can provide the solution for the crash they know is coming. That's something that I've been thinking about quite a bit recently. And they also said this, and so are 83% of the free floating equities on the global bourses. And here they also said half of all government bonds in the world yield less than 1%. So you're taking the risk of having a government bond, which is only good, of course, if the government doesn't go bankrupt, which we see now with Venezuela. We see that with Argentina having issues here. We see even now Russia more carefully. If we look at them, they're in a big tight spot right now. I'm not necessarily saying that they're going bankrupt, but they did have to do so in 1998, and they're heading in that direction right now. We're talking about big economies here, not necessarily a very small GDPs are out there that are affected by what is happening with the financial markets, with the currency wars, and the schemes created by these world bankers. Let's look at this. Roughly 1.4 billion people are experiencing negative rates in one form or another. 1.4 billion people. This is incredible when you think about it. Negative interest rates stealing money from you. You put your money in the bank and they are slowly but surely excavating that out back into their pockets. They get the zero interest rate, but your credit card has 18%, 20%, and so on. They get all the good deals and you get nothing. Let's talk about what I said in my book. The interest rate that a central bank charges will fluctuate based on the economic conditions. Recently, this has remained extremely low. In fact, in the recession of 2008, it went down to 0%, and it has remained there ever since. That goes to show you how bad this has gotten when they had to keep it this low for this long. It's approximately 6 years now at this level, showing you the situation, how bad it is. Let's get on with this. Out of Bloomberg, big banks return to pre-crisis lending standards, according to this regulator. The largest U.S. banks have lowered their standards for some of the riskiest lending in a sign that weak underwriting is returning to levels seen before the 2008 financial crisis. So this is what I continuously warn about. And of course, there are those who say you're a fearmonger, you don't know what you're talking about. Look at the S&P, look how well it's doing, look at the unemployment rate, don't look at everything else. Let me just put my blinders on. I will not look around. I'm just going to look at what is being shown to me right here. So if we want to get to reality, we need to see these statistics. It is essential exponential, in fact. And look at what they're doing. They continuously relax the lending standards. They did this in China recently, and they've done it in other countries. And all this does is allow for more speculation because they need to continue this boom. They need to prop it up. They want the bubble to inflate further, and they are doing so quite well. In fact, the stock market over the past few years has performed very well. That is nothing to really hide. You can tell, and it is doing well. So why wouldn't you put your money in the stock market? Just drop everything you have in there. But the fact is that the stock market is supported by this crutch. It is completely unrealistic, and eventually we're going to have a big problem. Do you want to put your money in and try to project when the crash is going to come? It is an extremely risky proposition that we're seeing right here, right now. We're heading back into the crisis. This is going to be called the financial crisis part 2 because it is the same thing occurring again. They pulled back on the Dodd-Frank, the most important part of it, and they're just allowing the derivatives to expand yet again. And right here, they're pulling back on the lending standards, and this is what happens. This is how crises are formed. This is how crashes occur, and this will ultimately bring in a collapse. And what you're going to have is what the Washington Post talked about: America's middle class being lost. You have maximum poverty. You have the loss of the middle class. When you have no middle class, you do not have a strong economy. You do not have people paying the taxes, because the super rich, the elite, they put their money offshore. They're not paying taxes. They have all the loopholes in the world, like Warren Buffett getting bailouts. And then you have the very low levels of the poverty line essentially just taking the money from the government structure. So you have a really big divide that is occurring. You have a schism that is being formed, and a chasm is opening wider and wider, and the middle class is nothing but a forgotten dream. If you found this video informative, please give me a thumbs up. And of course, don't forget to become an insider. It's where I give out all my best intel for free, and that is available at themoneygps.com. Just scroll down to the bottom, fill in your email address, and get occasional emails from me with good, short, concise info.